everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. This week we are picking up right where we left off on last week's Snow White cosplay. So that means that I am in the midst of sleeves. And I talked to you quite a bit about kind of my intentions with the sleeves last week, but all that we actually got to was starting the embroidery for the straps. So I've done this much. At this point, this is the exact same amount that I showed you at the end of the last video. And the next task that I have to do, besides probably just honestly running the embroidery machine and making more of these, because I know for a fact that that is not going to be enough, because I have 5 strips per sleeve and each strip is somewhere between, I think, like 12 to 20 inches long. So I do have to make more of these because I know that's not going to be enough. But while that is embroidering, what I am doing is I am working on the actual sleeve underneath. So I'm using my trusty old puffed sleeve pattern, which is this one right here. I love this one for puff sleeves. I use this for most of my puff sleeves and I just manipulate it to 2 different sizes. And I only do that because for me it's easier to like look at the template and then see how to increase it. So this is how big the actual pattern is and I just increase it. So for this one, I've already done my math of what I think I'm going to do increase wise. I am going to increase the bottom by 1 inch, the top up here by 2 inches, which means that this slope is going to get a little steeper. And also I'm going to increase the width by 2 inches. And actually that means that I'm increasing it by 1 inch. I'm increasing it a total of 2 inches more. So since this is cut on the fold, it's going to be 1 inch times 2, so that it is 32 inches around. I'm hoping that I don't want to go with the 4 inches that I clearly did at one point because I marked on here, add 4 inches. But I don't remember which one that was for that I did. And I kind of tested to see what that would look like. This is a really cool ruler, by the way. If you have never seen one of these flexi rulers, I definitely recommend having one. I use it the most for things like this, like sleeves, but I also do use it for skirt circumferences sometimes, though I wish it was longer for something like that. It's a 40-inch long ruler and it's wired, so you can bend it any which way. I'll put a link to it in the description if I can find where they sell them nowadays, because I think I got this, I want to say at Quality Sewing like years and years ago. But I kind of held this up to what 32 inches would be as a circle and kind of just like put it around my arm. And that seemed like it's probably good. 34 inches on the other hand would be that, which I don't know. I mean, oh, I'm torn. Maybe I should cut it to 34 because I could always cut down. Because the thing is, I'm not making a mock-up. I know I probably should. Mock-ups are really good. You should make mock-ups on most things. Puffed sleeves are not necessarily one of the things that you need mock-ups on, usually, especially if you have used the pattern before. And also it's because if you cut it larger, you can then cut it down. Like that's not a problem. So I'm just gonna do it. I am using this silk Dupioni, might be a shantung to be honest actually, for the outer layer, and I am going to flatline that with cotton organdy to give it some extra body and poof and help it stand out a little bit more. And then inside, what I have not done yet is I am going to make a fitted sleeve inside, or at least relatively fitted. Personally, it is always easier and more comfortable for me to have a little bit of gathering into a sleeve head, and let's face it, they're easier to make. And when you are doing that inside a sleeve, like no one's gonna see that inner fitted sleeve, I think it's perfectly okay to have a fitted sleeve that actually like fits your arm but still has some extra room going into the arm side. So that's what I'm going to do inside. And I mentioned this in the last video, but the reason that I'm doing that is because having an inner fitted sleeve within a puffed sleeve means that the bottom of your puff is not going to like drag down your arm. It's going to stay up there. The other thing that you can do when you have an inner fitted sleeve, if you really want a puff to like really stand out strongly, you could always stuff that, like stuff it with tulle or something like that, netting, because then your arm is protected. It's not going to get scratched by that tulle, and you can literally just like scrunch it up and shove it in there and fill out the sleeve puff. I am probably not going to do that with this sleeve unless the embroidered strips make everything so heavy that it collapses the like red portion of the sleeve. At that point I would stuff it. Otherwise, I'm hoping that I can get away without stuffing it. That's what I would prefer. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and cut it out of the Dupioni or Shantung or whatever that is. And I'm gonna cut it out of the Organdy, and I'm gonna flatline those together using my serger to do that. And then I am going to sew that up. I'm gonna do just one to start, just to make sure that this is the right dimension. I'm gonna sew that up with some gathering stitches at top and bottom and see if that is the right size for my puffed sleeve. Then we'll worry about the inner fitted sleeve. So here is the sleeve mock-up slash, you know, actual. I kind of wish that I had done a mock-up in hindsight because frankly, I think I would have lengthened this by 1 inch. Also, I'm really disappointed in my Organdy. I swear it started out stiff, but my Organdy is like so weak at this point. It's, I mean, barely holding that shape. So I don't know how it's going to be once I add the straps on there. Maybe the straps can help support things, and I don't have that inner portion of the sleeve in there yet, so maybe that will help also. But I may actually have to stuff this with some tulle or netting because this is pretty collapsible. This is not like the thicker, more stiff. It's not any thicker. It's just, it's not the stiff Organdy that it was when I bought it, I thought. It has gotten pretty wimpy. This is after I've starched it as well. So yeah, that'll work though. Again, I kind of wish it was a little bit longer. Should have extended it. Oh well, I really didn't think it was going to be too short. But yeah, it's good enough. So I'm going to go ahead and make up the other one as well. And I'm going to use the dimensions of the other one to determine the length of those strips. I still can't really tell if there's 5 strips or 6 strips. So I think I'm just going to kind of play around maybe with some pieces of ribbon to see what might look best, because I may want to add that 6th strip. When I look at all of the pictures of her, obviously there's nothing where I can see it all at one time. And so I just can't tell if there's 5 or if there's 6. But regardless, I have a lot more embroidering to do. So I feel like it does not make sense to have a strip underneath the arm, but then at the same time that looks kind of weird because it's the only place where it's like farther spaced out. But this ribbon is approximately the width of my strips, and this is 5 pieces of ribbon around, and so I feel like I wouldn't want one any farther down than that, and same within the back. So I think it's probably got to be 5. I'm gonna study the doll pictures a little bit more, but yeah, I'm thinking 5 is the answer. This is also making me realize that maybe I don't actually want the strips quite as long as the red section, because I feel like the red doesn't do as good of a job as kind of holding out with the strips, though maybe that is the other secret to these puffs, is actually using the strips to hold out the red. I could put a tack stitch, maybe a couple tack stitches in there, and just the embroidery alone is going to stiffen those strips more so than this ribbon, enough that it would probably keep the sleeve out, and therefore maybe I should do the strips as long as the red. So might have to do a little bit of experimenting here. I think I will cut the strips as long as the red at least, and then if I have to cut them down I can, but that way I don't cut them too short by accident. I've just done a rough estimate for how many inches of embroidery I need. What I've already done is 90 inches total, 2 45-inch strips, and what I need is about 85 inches per sleeve. So obviously I'm gonna have to do more. I'm gonna have to basically do twice that, and yeah. But right now I am going to make up the other sleeve since it was flat. That's what I used to get the measurements. And I'm still waiting to hear back from someone who actually owns the doll to see if they could tell me if it is 6 strips or 5 strips. If I don't hear from them, I'm probably just going to go with 5 and just kind of leave a gap there. But I'm still tempted to do like an equal amount all the way around. However, that will mean doing additional hoopings of the embroidery. So while I was working on the upper sleeve just now, I also decided to do a little test out for the lower sleeve. So this is kind of the best that I came up with, which is a triple stitch on the longest stitch length that I can do, which is a 4mm. Unfortunately, I don't know why that one only goes to 4mm when a normal stitch goes to 5, but yeah, 4mm was the best I could do. And I have used tearaway stabilizer in here. I don't know that it's necessary. I'm gonna do another stitch out and see if it is, but since I am stitching on the bias, it very well may be. It's just annoying that I'll have to, you know, tear it all away afterwards and use a whole bunch of stabilizer. But I think it looks really nice. This is a 1.5 inch grid. I tried it at first with a 1 inch, just like drawing my chalk lines out. It was way too small. I think 1.5 inches is the right scale for my sleeves. So that looks like it'll be really nice. That's the same thread as I used on the embroidery for the bodice. So yeah, winner. So a couple of wig options arrived from Amazon today, 2 out of 3 that I ordered. And this is the first one here. I like this one because the curls are really the size that I'm already going for. Like this is what I'm going for, just so you have that sort of comparison. And the curls are already pretty much that size. I think I need them to start just a little bit lower, and obviously I have not cut off the lace. I would also wind up cutting off the baby hairs here, and actually this is a center part, so I have it over a little bit and I might bring it over a little bit more to make it a side part because unfortunately this is a fixed part. But I would just need to cut off a little bit of length here, and I wouldn't need to like recurl or reset this wig, which I really like that idea. So anyway, this is wig option number 1. I'll link these wigs down in the description in case you're wondering. I do really like the texture and quality of this. I feel like this feels like a really nice wig, and I think it was in the 30 something range. It might have been 40, but it's really not that bad. And other than it being a little sparse on the part, I think that the rest of it is really pretty nice. And of course I do have to wear it a little sideways, but I don't think that people would be able to tell. Let me show you option number 2 though. This is option number 2. I have actually purchased this exact wig before. I can't remember what color I have it in, but what I do like about this one is that there's a relatively large area where you can move the part around. So I have just kind of moved it to over here, and that's because all of this area here, it's like a little U shape, that is all lace. So you can kind of move the part any which way that you want to. Not super far, like it doesn't extend out to here. It's not a fully lace front, but it's like a little partial lace front. I believe the other one that I ordered that is not here yet has significantly more lace. The thing about this one is that because the hair is really trained to go in a direction, I would have to retrain it to go this way. Like this does not want to go this way for the side part. And also I feel like the hairline on this, I hadn't noticed it on the other colors, but I feel like on the black, it looks really fake. Like you can just see where every hair is kind of inserted into the lace. And again, I think that's just because it is black, but it's a really nice hair quality, hair texture. However, it is not curled, and so therefore I would need to curl it, and honestly that takes a really long time. So I think I'm gonna go with the pre-curled wig because I don't have to do that much to it, whereas this would need honestly a lot of styling. And so yeah, just kind of with the limited amount of time that I have left, easier to go with a wig that saves most of the trouble for me. That said, I am still going to check out what the other wig that's coming looks like. So I'm not going to cut the lace off of that curly wig yet, but I'm going to box this one back up to be able to return it. And the other one I'm going to just like net up and put to the side and make sure it stays really nice until the third wig option arrives, I think either tomorrow or the next day. I have done 3 stitch outs so far of these like second set of strips, and you might notice something weird going on in the hoop for this final stitch out. I kind of ran out of length of the fabric, but I'm trying to maximize as much space as possible. So what you're seeing here is actually the edge of the fabric. I cut one of the other pieces out of this for the bodice, and the tape is holding down, and the pins actually, they're holding down the fabric to the stabilizer at the bottom. But that still works. Like, because I'm going to do that initial stitch out, you know, the basting stitch around everything, that's going to keep things in place, and it's going to let me cut all of the strips that I need out of it because I have now had confirmation that there's 5 strips total. So these last 2 here, plus I'm going to kind of do the same thing, and I'm going to place this section, which is the bottom of one of the strips I had made previously. I'm going to place this in one of the smaller hoops and do 2 more repeats, or like 1 repeat of each below up here. and that will be my final stitch out. That should give me everything that I need for the strips. So this little road is the final piece prepped in the 8x8 hoop, while the other bigger one is embroidering in the 12x8 hoop. So I've got my embroidery perfection tape along the side holding those down. This part obviously is in the hoop, and then this is not in the hoop. There's not enough of it left, so I've got the pins here until the basting holds it down. And here you can see the basting doing its job. So the basting did go past over here in the corner, so this tape is still very important. But really I could take the pins out at this point because the basting is holding that in place. And here we are going to do 5 of the stitch outs. Obviously I didn't need one where there is no fabric. So those 5 stitch outs over here, or 5 different motifs, those are going to be enough again so that my strips will be long enough to make all of the sleeve strips needed, in addition with that next last hooping. So now that all of the embroidered motifs for those strips are done, and I've picked off all of the papery stabilizer from all of the backs, I can go ahead and cut these into strips. So I had shown you, I've already cut the first ones that I did into those strips, but just one long strip each. And now I'm going to do the same thing to these. I had originally planned to do like one front strip and one back strip and put them together with 2 side seams, but I realized that I spaced them just far enough apart that I can actually cut down the middle of these and have just one seam in the center back. So that's what I'm doing with all of these. And before I do that long seam, I am going to cut each one to length as well, to match the length of the sleeve, which is why I have kept this one flat. And I've marked on it where each strip is approximately going to go. Again, I did get confirmation yesterday that there are only 5 on the doll. So let's go ahead and cut all these up and put these with these. And then the other part that I'm going to be doing kind of at the same time is I'm going to be making a mock-up slash hopefully lining, because I'm going to be using the cotton sateen that I got from Kent Selection, which is a local Indian fabric store. And I am going to work on the lower part of the sleeve because I would love to be able to start doing all of the diamond crisscrossiness that I need to do top stitching wise for that decorative stitching. And obviously I can't do that until I mock up the sleeve. And I'm also thinking for that, I keep going back and forth on whether I want to have the sateen as a full lining or have it as a flat lining. I should probably do it as a lining and not a flat lining and just use stabilizer and tear that all away as I'm doing that. But I had thought about kind of using it as my stabilizer and stitching it through, but I think that is less likely to look good than it would be if I just use stabilizer and treat that as a whole separate layer inside. So yeah, I've got all of that to do. Lots more sleeves to go. Why am I doing 2 really complicated sleeve projects in a row when I still haven't even finished Jane's sleeves? She's back here underneath all of this, but that will be coming up in next week's video right before Comic-Con. So technically, I have enough embroidery for all of the sleeve strips. However, 3 of those pieces of embroidery are the tail ends of these strips, like that I embroidered, and they need to be combined together. So I have 2 options: either re-embroider an entire strip or put these together, piece them. And you know what? One of these strips on each sleeve is gonna be like back here practically under the arm. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to piece 2 of these together. And in fact, I can even keep the pattern pretty much there because these 2 are meant to follow each other. So I'm just going to put these 2 together and try to match them as best as I can. Obviously, I'm going to have a little seam across. Obviously, the embroidery is not going to be able to match up perfectly, but we're going to get pretty close. And so yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to piece these together for one of the straps that's hidden in the back almost under the arm. I have enough for everything else, and so we should be good once this is pieced. Here we go. Here's our pieced piece, and hopefully it's not too obvious, especially when this is a little narrower and we really don't see much more beyond the embroidered design. But now I can take all of my strips and turn them into little tubes, and then turn them right sides out so that the seam winds up being directly behind the embroidery. And then I'm going to do top stitching through all of the layers, just a little bit out from the embroidery so that it kind of matches how things worked with that like under bust strap portion, so that it's outlined by just the blue matching top stitching. So I have my sleeve test right here. So I've got the lining portion here, and then I also have like the shorter, slightly fitted lining inside right now. And then the bands are kind of like pinned in on top, stitched in down here. Everything is stitched in over here, and everything is pinned in up here. So I'm being very precarious in my armpit. But I feel like this first band, this is too close to the bodice, like too far to the bottom of the arm. Just for reference, oh, maybe it's actually even worse because, okay, so there's my seam now centered the way it's meant to be, and this is just too close. It needs to go farther up so that it can kind of sit a little bit more away from the bodice. So I have to figure out exactly how to kind of put those in everywhere. That's the hard part that I'm kind of trying to figure out, is like, where do those fit in the scheme of all of the gathering of the sleeve into the arm's eye and into the lower portion of the sleeve. So I had left some gap between each of the strips, and I'm kind of thinking maybe they don't need a gap there, or maybe they need to be angled in some different way because I just don't like the look of that one there. But overall, I think the fit of the lower sleeve is great. I was worried I'd cut it a little too short, and actually I think that is good. I'm actually even wondering if I need to take some of it in, particularly down here. It obviously has to be big enough that I can get my hand through it. So I don't know how much I can really take out because of that, but maybe I can narrow it up a little bit in this lower portion of the sleeve just to kind of avoid a little bit more wrinkling. But I think it does go to a good height up here. It fits well through the elbow, and really from like here up, it fits well. I kind of need to peek and see what I can see about the upper fitted sleeve. It feels good as a fit around my arm. It's the length I'm not sure about. I think everything is kind of sitting where it's meant to be, but I'm also kind of feeling like I might need some stuffing in there, some tulle, like I mentioned, to kind of keep that red out. So I think I might just shove some netting in there, see what difference that makes, and then also play with the positioning of the strips and see what difference that makes as well. I also have this entire bolt of like, I can't tell if it's black or navy mesh fabric. It says it's black, but it is a net, like a stiff net. I'm debating about not only putting this inside the red, but possibly doing a layer or two of this like flatlined with the red section as well, because this is the crisper body that I'm looking for, and that organdy is just not cutting it. So I feel like that might really help. Ooh, on second thought, this is what it looks like with just one piece of netting stuffed inside the sleeve. It was, I think, the exact same size as this piece right here. And I feel like that is a really nice shape, and it's giving me the shape that I want, frankly. So maybe I will just stick with the netting inside as opposed to the flat-lined netting. The strips are a little bit harder to like zhuzh around. I have moved the upper portions that were just pinned. I have moved those all towards the center at this point, so they are all kind of touching as they go around. However, these ones are sewed in, not in one seam, in two seams. So I have to take everything apart in order to move those over. And I know that I should do this while it is still in mock-up form. I know that I should. I don't want to, but I do know that I have to. So I'm going to have to undo those seams, because basically what's going on here with these interior seams is that this middle seam is delightfully fully covered. I know you can't see anything because it's black on black, but you also can't see anything because there's no seam allowance showing. It's all encased. The seam allowance is like sticking up in between the inner upper sleeve and the outer upper sleeve. So it's all kind of in here, which means that there's no bulk down here on the lower sleeve and we don't get anything exposed. Now when I go and do this for real with this lower portion of the sleeve also bag lined, then the seam allowance on the inside that is currently existing on this lower sleeve, that will go like to the outside because it will be underneath the blue. I hope any of this makes sense. It's very convoluted. These are very complicated sleeves. I don't know if they're quite as complicated as Jane's sleeves, but they are very complicated sleeves. There's a lot of layers to these. So I'm feeling good about things, but I know that I do have to mess with those straps a bit. So I'm gonna undo those seams, try and move all of these strips over so that they are also kind of touching the center strip, and each one is touching each other, and we just have a larger gap underneath the underarm, because I think that will solve everything. I do think that I also may need to shorten some of the side straps, maybe not. I don't know. I had made them the same length as where they were supposed to be. Actually, now, if anything, they're going to where there is more fabric that they need to cover. But they don't look too bad size-wise. And this one is going to be in the back because that is my pieced strip. I also put it in the back because there was an imperfection in the Du Peony that was a pretty big imperfection, and I tried to fix the imperfection, which wound up actually leaving a little bit of a hole. So I'm going to go back over that with just some like matching thread just to kind of fill that back in. But I wanted all of that to be nicely hidden in the back where no one's going to see it. So I'm going to move those strips over and see if that makes it any better. So it's not a very big difference to have moved those over that tiny bit, considering we're talking about like by the time we get to here, it's maybe moving 1 inch over. However, I do think that it looks better. So we're gonna go with that to have them all like butted up against each other, both at the top and around the sleeve join here. And yeah, I think we're good on everything mock-up wise. So now I can take this all apart, cut out the blue outer fabric of the lower sleeve, start doing those decorative stitches on those, and then kind of put everything back together once I have the actual outers here. And I do also need to cut out the other one of the inners and like serge around the inners, etc. But yeah, I think we've got our sleeve game going, so let's just continue on. One sleeve stitching done, 1 to go. You can see the stitching in here. There were some irregularities as I was going, like my machine I think was skipping some stitches, so I kind of went over some parts multiple times, but overall I think it looks really good. You can't see those unless you're like really up close, but I like this grid size. That looks really nice. So now it's time to do the other one. So the lower portion of the sleeves are assembled now with, I did actually decide to flatline them because I realized it would just kind of save me a layer of seaming right at this join right here. So even though it is still the same amount of thickness, technically it is just like, it's easier to make it 1 layer. So this is, again, the lower sleeve. Now what I'm doing is I'm layering all of the layers together onto this seam segment. So the strips that will go up are getting put on next, and they're getting all like side by side attached on here. And then the inner portion of the upper sleeve is going to get put inside this, and it's going to be right side facing the wrong side of this. So the right side of the upper portion is going to face the wrong side of the lower portion, because that will give me that like fully encased, enclosed section on the upper puff. And then on the outside, after I put all of the strips on, then I'm also going to put the puff on, but that is going to be right sides together with the outside of the sleeve. Hopefully that makes sense. I will try to show you what all those layers look like when they're all together, and then I'm going to sew them all in one seam in one go, and then kind of pull everything up that will need to go into the arm's eye and sew all of that into the arm's eye, which will be the strips, the inner liner layer, and the poof red layer. But before I do that, I have to stuff it with the tulle as well. I did decide to forego the tulle flatlining, so I'm just doing the stuffing because that seemed like it worked out really well when I was showing it to you before. So these are the layers. We've got the inner part of the upper sleeve, that's that one. And then we've got the flat lining. That's the next black part that you see, the flat lining of the lower sleeve. And then that is already serged to the outer part of the lower sleeve. That's the blue right here. And then these are the bands right here, the embroidered bands. And those are like 2 layers plus the embroidery thread. And then this is the gathered layer right here, which is flatlined to the not so great organdy. So yeah, that's all the layers going into that like bicep seam. Now I'm going to sew that all and also do that to the other sleeve as well. I have sleeves! The sleeves are all attached in, obviously, at this point, including all of the linings and everything. They still do need a hem down at the bottom, but I want to try everything on again before I go ahead and hem that, since that's going to be hand sewing. But yeah, they look good. I definitely like them. They're nice and puffy. The strips of embroidery look really good. So hopefully everything will go swimmingly when I try this on tomorrow. So the very first thing that I've noticed now that I've added the sleeves, I can no longer reach the zipper all the way to get it to pull up very far. So I'm gonna go put a string on that, and we'll just have to like yank it up with the string, because yeah, my mobility has definitely decreased. We are in! Which means we're wearable. I mean, I do still have to do the hems on here. And actually, I think I am going to let out the sleeve through the elbow as much as possible, like decrease my seam allowance a little bit there, because it's just very tight around my elbow, which is what's leading to the decreased mobility. It's really not the shoulder joint, it's that I can't move my arms past here because my elbow won't stretch any. And I'm sure that's a difference of when I had it in the cotton lining. Cotton stretches. Polyester that has been embroidered over a whole bunch of times does not stretch. So yeah, I'm gonna give myself a little bit more room in the elbows there. I think even just that extra ½ inch that I can get from taking out the seam allowance will be fine. I can barely like touch my hair because of the elbow tightness, but everything else I think we are good on. I have zipped my hair into this zipper, so that's fun, especially because I was going to try on the wig for you that has just arrived, but maybe since I can't move my elbows and my hair is zipped in the zipper, I can't try on the wig right now with the costume on. I also have a feeling, just from looking at the wig package, that I'm going with the curly wig, because this seems like a very small wig package. Like there is not a lot of hair in this wig. So it's probably going to be a no, but I'm going to take it out and look at it anyway, and then probably go with the curly wig after all. So I took out the elbows just a little bit to give myself about a ½ inch more room in the elbows, and that was the right idea, because now I can reach over my head. It's still a little hard for me to do things on top of my head, like, you know, put on a wig. I have decided on this wig because the wig that arrived in the mail is not good. In fact, it might be the exact same wig as the other one that I already didn't like. It was not supposed to be. It was supposed to be a fully different wig with like all of the lace area up front. Doesn't have that. So I didn't even bother taking it fully out of the package. And that is going back, and we're gonna cut off the extra length in here, tie the ribbon for real. It's connected to the spool right now down on the floor. But it'll be something akin to this. Obviously I have to cut off the lace, and I'm gonna cut off probably all of these baby hairs as well, just because they don't have that on the doll. So while it's cute, I don't think it's necessary for this cosplay. But I mean, basically Snow White's wearable. I'm gonna finish this off with a little bias tape and sew that by hand, and then literally the bodice is done, which means that I can actually have time, I think, to move on to cape and maybe collar. We will see. I do still have some stuff to do on Jane, so I'm going to kind of switch gears to that, and we will come back here to do more for Snow White if there is time before Comic-Con. But hey, it's Saturday, a week before Comic-Con, and it's a week before Comic-Con. I have a week, so we'll see how much I can get done. Oh, I forgot. There is one other hand sewing thing that I'm doing besides just the inside of the sleeves here, which I've already applied the bias tape. I just need to hand sew the other edge down. But I'm also going to put a tack in the middle of each of the strips through into the red, because that'll prevent them from like kind of falling forward and keep them evenly spaced. So I found that when I showed it to you last, I had pinned one side. That looked really good. So I've now pinned the other side, and I'm just going to put a couple of tack stitches in each of those. So other than the tack stitches and the hems on those sleeves. This is done, which is fantastic. I have trimmed off Snow White's lace at this point. I left a little bit of baby hairs on the sides. I might trim those away as well. And I've also chopped off a lot of her length here. I think this may still be a little bit long, but I think I might go with it at this length for now until I have the standing collar. So if I manage to finish the standing collar for this week for Comic-Con, then I'll probably chop her a little shorter. Otherwise, I will probably wear her at this length and then chop her shorter once I do finish that. The standing collar is going to require shorter hair, and I think this is still, again, a little bit longer than it looks like she is in the pictures, but she looks really cute and full. Hopefully it's level. It is so hard to tell with curls because every time you shake them, they fall differently. So the nice thing about curls is that you don't have to really like cut them evenly, but at the same time, they're always gonna be different. But yeah, she looks really cute, and she's just gonna need the bow otherwise if I don't need to cut her shorter, so she should be good. Oh, and my machine is embroidering on Jane in the background. That's the noise that you're hearing, but you're gonna have to wait until next week's video to see the rest of Jane. So make sure that you're subscribed, you've got your notifications turned on so that you know when next week's video all about finishing Jane Seymour drops. So here's the thing. I have been working on Jane for the last few days now at this point, and I have everything that I had already like prepped finished on Snow. So the hand sewing, etc., like I tacked all over on the sleeves, the hems are done, all of that is done. I have not yet started a cape. I do have over here on the dress form some fabric draped like a cape. And the thing is that the doll's cape is silk on the inside, like the side that touches the body, and then it's velvet on the outside. And I do believe that I can get away with doing just a one panel cape regardless of the type of cape because my fabrics are wide and I don't want this to be like just a super overwhelming cape to like take over the rest of the costume. So it's not a problem. Like I have the fabrics in my stash. You are looking at the silk right there. This is the velvet. This is actually left over from my burgundy velvet bustle gown, this one right here. So it's been waiting for just this opportune moment. I was speaking with Kiralee about this because she is so knowledgeable and so like experienced in cosplay competitions, because my goal is to enter this into competition next year when it's, you know, finished. And part of that is that when you're looking at something for a competition, you are looking at like the accuracy of the original versus what you have produced. And in this case, the doll has a trained cape, as in it drags on the ground. That's not very practical. I mean, it's not practical for cons in general, but it's especially not practical up here in Seattle for like this weekend when it is meant to be drizzling on and off all Saturday. And also, a velvet cape kind of makes that worse. I mean, silk's really not any better because silk can spot in the rain, but I don't want a trained cape for this weekend. So I had kind of thought about like, well, maybe I could make the cape with a really, really deep hem and then just like let the hem out and hope that it hasn't gotten all screwed up from being too close. Because basically I want a cape that ends like at least a foot off the ground. I want it to be way far away from the ground. I don't want it to be anywhere near the ground. I don't want it to get dirty. I don't want it to get stepped on. I don't want it to be too heavy on like my hoop skirt, any of those, or just heavy in general because it's going to be pulling from my neck. Well, it's going to be pulling from the back of the bodice. So the velvet, I had them both pinned up here on the dress form for a while, and then the velvet fell and it was just revealing this gorgeous silk shantung, like catching the light, matching the sleeves, looking so flowy and full and voluminous, which the velvet kind of brings down because it's heavier. And obviously the silk then would only act as a lining. And so it dawned on me like, do I have enough silk that I could just make a one layer silk cape for this year and that's short, and then make the real cape for next year? And I seem to have exactly that much silk. So that's what I'm gonna do in the next hour and a half, because that's how long I have between now and rehearsal. I am going to attempt to make a cape. Oh yeah, did I mention it's Thursday and Comic-Con is tomorrow? I mean, Comic-Con technically is going on today, but I worked today. So Comic-Con is tomorrow for me and I have rehearsal tonight. And I am not wearing this until Saturday, so I do have a little bit more time if I need to, but I'm gonna make a cape real quick. Hopefully it shouldn't be anything bad. My plan is to taper it in a little bit at the neck because although it is pleated in the back of the neck, like that's the design of this cape, I don't want it to be too narrow at the top and I don't want it to be too full with like all of the fullness pleated into this small neck section. I think that would look really big and bulky. So I'm gonna cut little wedges off of the side and I'm gonna make a cape that is approximately like calf length, that is still going to totally give Snow White vibes and I think do a good job at completing the outfit and also hide my zipper pull tab ribbon because that will be underneath. I will have to figure out how to actually be able to button the cape on to the neckline because my plan is to make buttonholes in the top of the cape and to add buttons to the top back of the neckline to then like have those attach. Honestly, with the silk being as light as it is, I could also do this with large snaps, but I feel like buttons and snaps, the difference, the difficulty, time, etc. difference, it's the same. So yeah, I am going to be doing this with machine hems because I have very little time and it's just what's going to happen. And we're going to make a cape real quickly. So I kind of forgot that I need to eat dinner before rehearsal, so I need to go do that. But I do have the cape cut. The sides are hemmed. I've got half of the neckline pleated, so I just have to duplicate that on the other side. Once this is pleated, then I will hem this part as well. And once I know that the top is like sitting where it needs to, then I will hem the bottom. Right now the bottom is straight across, but since this is a bias edge, most likely the edge of the bottom will have to curve up just slightly so that it doesn't like hang weirdly. However, I don't know if that's going to be true because it's also sitting further on the shoulder, so it may actually need to be longer, which is why I'm leaving that to last. I will do that when I get home from rehearsal, but here's half a cape. I had so much fun wearing Snow White today. She was just getting such really amazing reactions from everyone, young and old alike. All of the kids' reactions in particular were really cute because I feel like a lot of kids had real moments of like, oh my gosh, it's Snow White, as opposed to it's a person dressed as Snow White, because that's what people do at a con. So that was really cute and just really great reactions from adults as well. I'm really happy with how this bodice looks. I think obviously it makes the outfit. I mean, that's what I've done so far, right? Is this bodice, but I do think that it just looks really impactful with all of the embroidery and everything. I can't wait until the whole rest of this project gets going and gets done and everything, and wearing it next year with like everything. I have realized that if I do want to enter this into competition next year, I think I need to figure out something to do beyond just like a copy of what the doll is wearing, some additional skills, for example, that I might be able to do, maybe like 3D printing or lighting, or you know, some sort of like a special effect type situation, just beyond sewing, because that was a lot of the feedback that I was getting from Felicity when I entered her in competition back in January, was I need more skills than just sewing. But yeah, I am happy with how this wig turned out, especially since it required very little work. And I paired it with this necklace that I just like had in my jewelry stash. But everything has worked out really well. The really nice lightweight cape, I have not been feeling it whatsoever, which is great. And it was catching a little bit of like air as we were taking our pictures. And honestly, although she was warm, this did not feel that much warmer to wear than Little Red yesterday, which is really surprising. I don't know if I was just acclimating myself more to the con as a whole or what, especially because this is largely polyester. Yes, it is lined with cotton, but like other than the red, which is silk, which also doesn't breathe, everything else is polyester, and she was not that bad at all. And the wig also like did not bother me, honestly, until like the last little bit of the cosplay contest. I was like, oh, I've been wearing a wig for, you know, what, at that point, probably 11 hours or more, or something like that. So having this nice lightweight wig like out of my face, really, really good. But yeah, I've really enjoyed wearing this, and I can't wait to just like up the ante with the rest of this project. I'm not going to be continuing with this immediately because I've got stuff that I need to do for the Victorian Festival coming up soon. So we are going to be turning our attentions back to historical sewing. First off, next week you are going to get the finishing off of Jane. Then the following week is going to be a Comic-Con vlog. So you're going to see a little bit more of this, but also just my experience of the con as a whole. And then it is on to Victorian sewing. So I hope that that is very exciting for you guys. It's a very exciting for me. And once that is done, I will be probably going back and forth with this, plus my Robe à la Francaise version of Snow White is going to be coming this summer, and I'm going to be working on stuff for my Ireland trip, so there will be more historical sewing involved with that. So lots of fun projects coming up. I'm very excited for everything, and then at some point I will really be turning my attention back to this version of Snow White and finishing her off. However, I am going to be making the skirt for the Robe à la Francaise, so like frankly that part at least is going to come before September, because that's when I need it for. So yeah, just overall a really great day at the con, a really great day as Snow White. This has been so much fun and just easy to wear and really brings a lot of delight to a lot of people. So it's been really wonderful, and I highly encourage you to dress up as a Disney princess because the reactions are just A+. So that's going to be it for this video and this project, at least for now. Hopefully you liked this video. If you did, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube at least once a week, usually with my sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays, and sometimes with additional costuming or sewing related content, especially short form content, out on Saturdays. But I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks or join my YouTube channel memberships right here on YouTube below the video. I'd also like to take this time to give my patrons an absolutely huge shout out and thank you, because without them I could not do all of this costuming and YouTubing, etc. Particularly my patrons at the Romantic, Victorian, and Edwardian level tiers, who are Jean, Kim, Audra, Janet, Rowan, Deborah, Robin, Nurse Anita, Linda, Nick and Steven, Jen, Dale, Judd, Joan, Nancy, Eileen, Roxanne, and Jacob. Thank you all so much, and thank you all for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!